Hi, we're back with future perfect progressive, and let's look at the format as we did with the future progressive and future perfect. The first thing we recognize is, of course, that we have the future, and that can be represented with the word will, or we'll see that you can also have a form of be, going to, that also works. But to form perfect, you have to have the form of have. And so after will, you always have base verb, but for future perfect, the verb has to be, the base is have. Now we have the progressive. Well, that means to get the progressive, you recognize that you need a form of be. So we're just moving left to right. The will is the future. The have is part of the perfect, but we know that with perfect, we have to have V3 and in this case, a form of be, which is been. You know that we say the base is be, the past is was, were, and the past participle is been. We need this. This is still the form of be. And then we need the progressive, and that is just be, what we have here, plus the base of sleeping with ing. And that's how we form it. So we have four parts here. Will have been sleeping. And that's how you get this. The have plus V3 is the perfect. The will is the future. And the progressive is a combination of the been, which is a form of be. And we have it with is, am, are, was, were. And then we have the meaning of sleep with the ing to complete the progressive. Okay, let's look at the chart and then we'll talk about what this means. What we have in these in the chart is the first action connects to the second action, and the second action is another future action that happens later on. So let's do the math with this. I go to bed at 10, and that's the first action, and you see that's done in simple present because it's habit, routine, schedule. And then it says Ed will get home at midnight, and that's the second action here, the midnight, the 12. But this is when I went to bed. That means for between 10 and 12, we have 2 hours, which means that I will have been sleeping for 2 hours by the time Ed gets home. Here again is our words by the time, which we use with the subject and simple present verb, even though the meaning is future. So when Ed gets home, I will have been sleeping for 2 hours. My sleeping is not finished. That's why we need the progressive. I would like to show you with parts D and E that the future perfect progressive can actually start in the past. And that is why the first X on the second chart is to the left of the vertical line to show that this is the past part. And that's because the action of teaching started in the past if we're going to get the 45 years part in. So we have here, we have again the future of will. After will, you always have the base, and it can be any base except for if you're doing perfect, then it has to be have. So have is the base, and if you're doing the perfect, you have to have V3, and that is will have taught. And if we're doing the progressive, it's base or will plus base of have, because it's the perfect, but we want to do the progressive, so the base is not going to be taught, but we need a form of be, which is have. That been is the V3. Taught is V3, been has been V3. And then we have base teach with ing. These two sentences actually have the same meaning, and that's because we've seen that with words like teach, live, study, other ones, play, and also wear, you have similar meanings whether used in the progressive or just the perfect. So what is interesting is even though we are using a future, the action actually started here in the past. So let's look at the sentence here. When Professor Jones retires next month, that's the simple present of retires, but it has a future meaning because we know that retires is future because of the words next month. That has to be the future. So even though we have simple present, it is the future. We have it in the time clause, which begins with the word when. And then he will have taught for 45 years. But the 45 years doesn't just happen in the future. That's why we had to go back here. The 45 years is connecting the past to the present. That's future. That's the perfect. And then it even goes beyond the present and into the future, which is next month. This is the same as when Professor Jones retires, simple present, but with the meaning of future with the words next month. He will have been teaching for 45 years. Same thing, even with the progressive. Because we assume he's been teaching the whole time, same thing as with he will have taught. It's even though it's on the progressive, we know that he's been teaching the whole time. It's progressed and continued until now. Thank you.